Hello and welcome everybody to Let's Talk Studios. I'm just going to get straight into the video. I don't think this is the perfect opportunity to be saying my intro line because I have a lot to say about this current issue that's been trending for these past couple of days. And if you're not well updated on what I'm talking about, I'm merely just referring to the whole Cwecwe situation. And if you don't know who Cwecwe is, as far as my knowledge and my research goes, she is a young South African baby girl, 7 years old. Now, if you don't know about her story, it's a tragic one, unfortunately, that something as bad and as awful as her being assaulted in school premises occurred. And yeah, you can go look up her story. It's currently trending on social media, but mostly TikTok. But I wanted to have my say on this whole issue because this has always been an ongoing and a long-going thought in my head about, the conversations that have always been made for the past couple of years, as far as I remember this conversation being a thing. That me participating or having been a participant in so many discussions and debates about what really contributes to the whole assault, and I'm just going to use the word grape issue concerning women and children, right? Because it's always been an idea of gender-based violence, assault, and rape, and all of these things. Now, before I begin this video, I just want to take a moment let's take this opportunity to reflect on something so we can put it aside and get to the real idea and the real issue here. That, the debates that we've long been having about this whole gender-based violence discussion, in some of the ideas that were mentioned long ago and are still being repeated, fortunately or unfortunately, even today, is that the whole assault topic is mostly contributed by the victims themselves, which already from the word go doesn't make any sense. But what do I mean when I talk about they are the ones that are contributing to this whole idea? Is because of this notion that whenever this whole assault issue is raised, the problem seems to be pointed at how women are dressed. Now, this is why I said before this video begins, let's just quickly take that idea and throw it in the trash. Because clothes are clothes. However way you choose to dress up is your business. Okay, let's start there. And as far as my analysis and as far as my acknowledgement and research goes, if we take time to go and reevaluate all the victims that you could possibly think of that were assaulted, which are females, if you go analyze most people, the modal statistic of females that get assaulted, majority of them were dressed properly. Majority of them were modest in clothing. Majority of them were even in settings, which by that I mean venues or locations, that weren't so provoking in terms of modesty. And if I could make further reference and example about this, is how even grandmothers are getting assaulted. So already that should give you a hint or an idea, if you're slow to think, that the whole assault and rape topic is not contributed by how females or women are clothed. Because if these people are able to assault a grandmother 60, 70, 80, 90 years old, then it says we are looking at a far different monster in this topic. The elephant in the room is not really how they are clothed. Let's take another example besides our senior adults. These people are also able to assault and harass babies, infants, children, 5 years old, 6 years old, and in this case, 7-year-old Cwecwe, if I'm pronouncing the name right. So already this should give you another hint that this is not about how females are dressed. This is not even about how they are clothed or how they walk or how they move. Okay? So it is quite an unfortunate circumstance and situation that happened to this young girl. And like I always say to myself, I'm not going to sit back and relax and say, since I am in Lesotho and this incident occurred in South Africa, then it doesn't involve me. Of course it does. I could point out a few, if not many, examples of why this will always involve me. Number one, this happened to a young African. That should be number one. So in a sense, the way this thing happened should make me feel, or it makes me feel, or should bring the same emotions that I would feel if someone that young close to me had something like that happen to her. So that is how I feel. That is how I felt when I came across this whole story. And I've been sitting for a while listening to all the stories and making my research about what really happened, and got to read the whole story of how this went down. And I must say it's a very saddening situation of how this happened. But I just want to quickly take a moment for me to really give my part about what I think about this whole issue, consolidating all people who've been victims of such cases, the current people who are currently dealing with such situations, and how I think we should look at this whole idea for the next coming years and into the future. But already I've already emphasized and mentioned that this whole how they are dressed is out of the question, is out of the conversation. We're not going to talk about that. It's not how they are dressed. Now, what do I think is the actual reason why such things are happening? It doesn't matter if it's a child, it doesn't matter if it's a senior citizen or just a middle-aged adult. It keeps happening to any age group. Because as monstrous as it might sound still for like a 5-year-old child, it still happens to like a year-old, 2 years old. It happens to every age group. So that is why I mentioned earlier that we are dealing with something far more serious than fabric, than dresses, than clothing. Now, here's my idea of why I think such things are happening. But before I get to this story, I'm just going to make a little bit of another story that is going to give us a much clearer reference of what I'm to talk about. Now, if we take a moment to look at our family histories, more especially as African people, and how our families are mostly structured, is how I've always had this notion that in some families, and I've seen it in my own family, the great-grandparents or the grandparents are usually the chief cornerstones of families, not even the parents themselves, the grandparents. Okay? So what do I mean when I talk about this? Have you ever been in an instance or in a situation where you find that majority of siblings or majority of the people in any branch of family, whenever they come across certain problems, whether it be marital problems, whether it be problems with their children, raising children, or whatever the situation might be, oftentimes the last resolution, when all options seem to be out of conversation, is some people choose to visit their great-grandparents or their grandparents. Some people prefer their grandfather over their own father or their own parents. Some people prefer their grandmothers because the relationship and the bond is just so strong way above their own parents. We have children who prefer a relationship with their grandparents over even their own parents. And that happens, and that is normal. There's nothing wrong with that. Because a parent is not only the person who birthed you. Let's start there. So it's very much easier to have that kind of a parental relationship, a parent-child relationship, even with your great-grandparents or grandparents. Now, back to the story that I was trying to make reference with. One thing to highlight that I've mentioned so far is how our great-grandparents and our grandparents can be chief cornerstones because they hold the family bloodline together. It could be a grandmother, it could be a grandfather, but they usually hold the whole family together, such that in a case where they pass on, it almost seems like everything starts to crumble because the whole family knows not who to turn to. Now, keeping in mind the example I just made, let's bring it back to the context of what I'm to discuss today. The reason why I made this reference is because this applies so much to what is happening today, right? Now, this is me giving my insight about this whole issue. The reason why I believe we are running into such evil things happening in the world and we are trying so much to figure out what's the leading cause or what's the cause. We are trying to pick statistics. We are trying to work with information we are getting from the news. We are trying to make analysis of this, analysis of that, make hypotheses, justify it, get it wrong and try to justify another one. And we end up not getting to a much solid conclusion. Is because my belief is we have excluded or we have neglected the name Jesus Christ. Now, like I said, keeping in mind the idea of grandparents holding the family bloodline together, Jesus Christ holds everything together. Now, let's bring it down to the context of this earth. He holds everything together. Now, when you exclude him in the business will shut down. He is the prime officer. He is the facilitator. He is everything. He holds the company together. When you exclude him out of the company will crumble down to dust. So this is what I think is happening. We as a people need to go back to the greatest source of happiness, the greatest source of life, the greatest and the most organic fountain of life, which is only found in Jesus Christ. Now, this is what I believe we all need. We don't need Google. We don't need AI because AI is not the one thing that's going to stop men assaulting women and children. It's not. We don't need the government because if you go back and watch some of the stories of how everything is going and how the people in the community is trying to get justice for Cwecwe in South Africa, they started a movement of people who are trying to get answers and trying to make a movement to overall get justice for her. And sure, that is good because it shows people are alive and they have emotions and they are very much offended and saddened by this tragic incident, which is good. But I will keep repeating this above all of those that we can do because I'm trying to think of it in the most extreme way possible. We can all up and say, since the police is not being anyhow useful in this case, we are just going to burn down the police stations. We are just going to burn down the government buildings and we're going to kill politicians and all of that. That will not help, but it will open up a new can of worms. So that is why I say the greatest solution we have is Jesus Christ. And not even going back to Jesus Christ when we feel like it. Because one thing as humans that I've even, observed even about myself is we tend to use Jesus Christ's name or his time or his love as like a tool that we just pull out of our back pocket when we need it and put it back when we don't. By that I mean we only call upon the name Jesus Christ when things are not going our way. When everything is good, sometimes we forget to do so. And this is not even for everybody, but I'm just saying a fraction of us, believers, is we use Jesus Christ as a tool. We need not use him as a tool. We need to have him in our lives every single hour, every single millisecond of the day. So it's quite unfortunate and it's very saddening what has happened to this little girl. Condolences to her family. But the reason why I wanted to make Jesus Christ the highlight of what we need as a people is because the longer we hold on to making a debate, as podcasters making videos about these issues and opening up more and more discussions and talking over this issue, we deny the people who have lost a loved one an opportunity to heal, right? So one thing that has kept me overthinking if I should make this video or not is when people are going through a rough time and the wounds and the scars are still freshly open, I do not like to disturb the healing process, but I think it's just one thing I wanted to put out into the world that could probably benefit everybody who's going to be watching this video, of how the situation could have turned out or could turn out better for us in the future and how we can handle such issues. But before I conclude this video, I would just want to remark on some disgusting parts of this whole story. If you go, you won't even find it difficult to discover, but there have been some people on social media that have made some very disgusting comments on this whole issue. I'm not going to post them. I'm not going to pull them out and we're going to talk about them and then I'm going to say them out loud. My voice box is not meant to say such things. But there have been some individuals who have been, I'm trying to find the right word to describe how disgusting their comments were, but never mind. But they have made some atrocious comments online, some very disgusting things. And it's one of those things that just, gets you thinking of what do people actually think to say such things online about such sensitive comments. Now, me highlighting the word sensitive and how people are able to make such things or to say such things on sensitive topics, it's a little thing called being desensitized. Whenever I get to make such episodes and such videos, it always helps me reflect on some things. And one example that I would like to make on this whole desensitization thing is Instagram. Instagram has played a very significant role in making sure that we are emotionally and mentally desensitized. Because now in the times that we are living in, we have certain individuals who find themselves finding tragic incidences comic, funny, entertaining. You're watching a video of someone fall off a bike, fall off a house, getting injured is now apparently comedy. So such things are not so minor because consistency in such energies has an ultimate effect on the character and personality of a person and even in the way they think. So I just wanted to put it out there. The main idea for today wasn't to talk about Instagram, but I'm just saying we need to look out for such things that we might take lightly, but they're not so light. They're actually very, very serious things, right? So I hope the people who made those disturbing comments online get what they deserve. I'm not going to say out loud what they deserve. Only God knows what those people deserve. Because currently, from my standing point, I believe jailing those people is not so enough now. You can't get someone molesting, assaulting, or raping someone, regardless of their age, and you just lock them up behind bars. I don't think that's enough. Even giving someone a death sentence or a life sentence, it's not enough. I feel like there should be something else different made for such special cases of people, because the things that they do, I don't think that's the right reinforcement for them. So this honestly has been a very difficult topic to talk about, because it's so saddening that this has been ongoing for years and years and years. And honestly, I think I personally have found the answer that I've always been wondering of: what is going wrong? What are we missing? Because yes, we jail these people, we try to fight these people, we try to do this, involve the police and all of that and officials, but it seems there's no resolution. These things keep happening. But I feel like now I'm satisfied to confidently say I've found my answer. And again, I repeat, because I'm not ashamed to do so: Jesus Christ is the only way. I think we need not take that statement lightly when it says Jesus is the only way, the truth, and the light. The only way. Emphasis on the only way. He is the only way. Everything else will fail you, but Jesus Christ won't. That one I have a personal testimony of. He won't fail you. That's what we need to do personally from my point of view, that we need to start instigating as people. Jesus Christ. Thank you very much for watching today's episode. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. And let's all come together and let's get justice for this child of God. Let's get justice for this precious soul that had such a terrible and so monstrous act happening in her life, when she was just out trying to get an education and a bright future for herself. And then this happens. Condolences to her family for this great loss. And I'll see you guys in the next episode.